It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege to interview the Cal Poly assistant men's basketball coach, Coach Dave Hanson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get involved in coaching college basketball?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting story. So I played basketball at Cal Poly 2008, 2012. Got my major in finance, and so once I was done playing, I got into the business world. We got a finance job, right out of college, and I thought I kind of wanted to go that track. And about a year in, for some reason, I had an itch to get back into basketball, which I thought I was going to be done with. And so, just from there, I pursued a grad assistant position at Pittsburgh, and one thing led to the other. So, it's kind of something where it's just sitting at a desk, and I go, "Geez, I think I want to get back into basketball." And so, it's just kind of how it started. And 7-8 years later, here we are.
What was it like, obviously, playing for Cal Poly as a player?
I had a really positive experience. Born and raised in Minnesota, so playing out of state, never been to California. But, when I made that decision to go there, I kind of took a holistic approach. I wanted to make sure that obviously basketball was good, the academic component, socially, wanted to go to a place that I hadn't been before. And so I was fortunate enough to play under two really good coaches there. And they really put a lot of time and effort in developing me. And I had a lot of fun, both on and off the court. And I can't say enough good things about Cal Poly as an institution and our basketball program.
Of course, what were some of your accomplishments as a player?
Yeah. I think the biggest accomplishment is that, every year our win column increased. Our first year, I think we finished 7-21. And then my senior year, we're 18-15 and multiple Big West tournament wins. And we finished in the top half of the conference my junior and senior year. So there's no question those are the two biggest accomplishments, in my career, and did it with a great group of guys that I'm still, to this day, very, very close with.
What was it like, obviously, getting to put on that Cal Poly jersey?
It was special. I think, as a coach now, and I look at this in recruiting is, Cal Poly, whatever place you go to, it's got to mean something. And I think, when I see that Cal Poly logo, it means something. And but obviously a little biased here. I think we're the best institution in the country. And I firmly believe that. I think we're extremely unique. I don't think there's any place in the world that's like Cal Poly and San Luis Obispo. And so it means a lot to me. It's special. My wife was a graduate here at Cal Poly as well. So we bleed green and gold and white. So it means a lot for sure.
Of course, what was it like getting the grad assistant job at the New York?
So the GA spot in Pittsburgh, it was great. It was a really good experience. I was really wet behind the ears. I had no idea, to be quite honest, what I was doing. And so I was really fortunate to be able to land under, Hall of Fame coach and Jamie Dixon at the time. And, he was more than kind enough to let me be a part of that program. And those spots are really hard to get. So it was totally, I think, a God thing that it happened. But it was really good for me to see the highest level of Division I basketball. And I was able to really get my hands dirty and, learn a lot. And so I think that experience, I've taken a lot from it, and tried to apply what I think works as well here at Cal Poly.
What was it like, obviously, getting your first assistant coaching job at Pittsburgh, the Panthers?
Yeah. So that grad assistant spot, so it wasn't a full-time assistant. It was, a grad assistant, but you're able to do a lot of different things. There's some rules. What you can't do is you can't go out recruiting. But Jamie let me be involved in every aspect, within the rules. And so, in terms of film breakdown and just assisting the other assistant coaches in what they were doing, I was able to, see everything and how it works. And at the time, Pitt was top 25 both years. And so to see, what a successful program does on a daily basis was completely invaluable.
Of course, what was it like, obviously, during your time there, being in the ACC?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I mean, there was no off nights, that's for sure. It was cool. I was younger at the time, but to be able to play in all those different arenas, the Yum Center at Louisville, Cameron Indoor, Chapel Hill, all those places was really cool. And not only that, but to be able to compete and beat those teams, I think was really, really special. The Carrier Dome and so every night, when you're playing against teams and you're on ESPN and that, it's a different experience. And so, I know you're from, you're in North Carolina now, so I don't know where your allegiance is at, but it was really fun. I look back on those couple of years with a lot of fun memories.
What were some of your accomplishments during your time there at the Panthers?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, I think from a coaching perspective, I think if, I know my aim and our aim here at Cal Poly is, we're really teachers and we're developing young men, and we're using the sport of basketball to be able to do that. And so I think on an individual level, I'd like to say that I had an impact on players there in my time. I helped them get better as basketball players and to be a positive influence. And I think I achieved that. And, obviously we won a lot of games, and I'm going to take zero credit for that because it was the coaches above me. But to be a part of something where you're successful, I think and to be outside of something other than yourself, I think is the biggest accomplishment you can have. And a lot of those guys have gone on and they're really successful overseas in the NBA and married and all that type of stuff.
How did it feel, obviously, to come back to Cal Poly of your alma mater to finally be an assistant coach?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, Division I basketball, it's an interesting business. It's really actually hard to get back, I think, to where you graduated sometimes. And we're in such a unique location. We're halfway between LA and San Francisco and right on the ocean. And we're in kind of this vacation town. And so to come back, you either work at the institution or you're retired, and so I know I never thought I'd make it back until I was older. And so to catch a break and to play for the guy that I was able to play for several years was really special, and incredibly grateful for the opportunity. And, to your first question, to be able to help rebuild a place that I was at, I don't take for granted. So very thankful to be back here.
Of course, during your time there, what was it like, obviously, in the first few years, going from obviously knowing the team, knowing you as a player, a former player, to now as a coach?
Yeah, so there was, I think about 5-6 years in between or maybe even 7, from when I graduated to when I came back. And so all the guys that I knew, player-wise, was no longer there. And so very familiar with everyone else around the program, administratively, alumni, everyone in the community. But in terms of the player standpoint, everyone was gone. So I kind of had a fresh slate when I came in as a coach, which was nice.
What are some of the things that you've accomplished so far at Cal Poly?
Yeah, I think we've been, we're in year 3 now. It's been kind of a unique time with COVID. We had our first year that was a normal year, and then the last 2 years the year 2 we played maybe half of those games, and every time we weren't practicing, we were in isolation and doing Zoom calls like crazy. And this year it's we kind of went through a little road bump there where we got paused for a couple weeks, but I think we've instilled in our players a level of resiliency. We've established who we are, and we're starting to see some of those results right now. And so I think, what we've built, that foundation under Coach Smith, I think is what I'm really proud of. And our guys have been successful in the classroom, socially, and those that have graduated, they've all gotten jobs right away, whether it's playing overseas or in the corporate world, the private sector, whatever the case may be. And so they're doing really well. And I think, that's what it's about.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built upon as a coach from when you were a player?
Yeah. In specific to Coach Smith or just in general?
In general.
Yeah, I think you hear that word a lot, and it's a catchphrase sometimes. We're culture, and the thing is, it's true. And so I think Cal Poly in general, our recruiting philosophy, and this goes for all the students really here at Cal Poly, is character is at a premium, right? So we recruit kids that are high character. They work hard. They compete every single day. They want it. They have a level of humility, thankfulness, and servanthood. And so I think that's what we've instilled under Coach Smith. He's not only a brilliant basketball mind, but he does an incredible job of running a program. And so those are values that we've instilled, we've recruited to it. And, that's where our success is going to happen. And, we're just right around that corner from that happening. But that cultural foundation is definitely laid for sure.
Of course, what does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play college basketball?
Yeah, it's it's competitive. We're 370 Division I schools. There's a lot of good programs out there, and so we got to make sure that we find the right guys. And it's easier said than done. It takes a lot of time, really diving in when we find a prospect that we like, that we think fit from a basketball standpoint, diving into their character, what their integrity is, what they're made of, and will that work here at Cal Poly in the framework that we have. We're not for everyone. We're not shy about saying that. It takes a special person here. It's a high academic institution. We're in a college town, so we're the NBA team here. You're very visible in the community, and we're at that mid-major plus Division I level. So we kind of check all three boxes there. So we need guys that are high performers, and I think spending time really getting to know and evaluating who we want to bring here has been really important.
Of course, when you're on the road, what is it like, obviously, seeing those players that obviously from your experience playing at Cal Poly, what obviously Cal Poly is looking at in players?
Yeah, I think that's been a good advantage that I've had is, since I did play here, I think I have a good understanding of the academic rigors, what our limitations are, what our advantages are here, and being able to really communicate that effectively to who we're recruiting. And, fortunate enough to have success here as a player. And so I think that's really helped me, help Coach Smith and our staff, as we go out and recruit. And so, it's definitely a process. We had that pause for a year. Everything was canceled in the summer where we weren't able to get eyes on guys. And so I'm excited to go back to being able to see these kids in person, but it's a process through and through. And, it takes a lot of time and effort, but I think we've done a really good job of that. Not sure if I answered your question or not, Brandon.
What does the official visit look like for prospective student athletes looking to go to Cal Poly?
Yeah, I think there's NCAA rules. So you've got your 48 hours that they can be on campus. So, they kind of limit what you can do, in that sense. So we're all on a level playing field. But, our goal is to make sure that they get to see who we are, the school, the basketball program, how they fit into that, and if that's a place that they want to be. And so obviously we've got we live in probably the nicest area of the world, in my opinion. I mean, 75 and sunny 330 days a year here. We've got a gorgeous campus, over 20,000 students. Our academics is incredible, and our athletics. We're in a college town, like I said before, we're the NBA team. I couldn't think of a better place to play. And so just being able to show them who we are, and you know what, if this is something you want to be a part of, we believe in you here. And if it's not, it's not. And, if you don't want to be here, then this isn't the right spot. But we've been really successful. Coach Smith is an incredible coach to play for. And we've been very successful in terms of our recruiting base these past couple of years.
Of course, as a coach, was it like obviously seeing those recruits put on that Cal Poly jersey after obviously knowing you put it on as a player and what you accomplished?
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of pride. I'm very prideful in terms of green and gold and white, like I've said before. And, I think there's a level, I'm excited for our guys that we have here. And I don't think all of them have an understanding of how big of a privilege it is. And they'll understand, I think, at some point, especially when they get out into the world, and it's like, wow, you went to Cal Poly, you played there, and so it becomes a little more tangible. But for me, it's special, and it's an elite brotherhood to be a Cal Poly graduate, in my opinion, and so I'm very thankful for all the guys that we have here.
Who are some of the teams that you face in your conference?
Yeah, we've got a great league from top to bottom. It's every night's a competitive, slug it out fight, and so. I think some of the more common names that you may hear, you get, Irvine and Santa Barbara have done a really good job the past 4 or 5 years, and they've been at the top of the league. Hawaii's really good. You got UC Davis up north. You've got Fullerton, Riverside's been really good, tough. We just added Bakersfield, UC San Diego. Long Beach is perennially, when I was a player, they were cracking top 25 almost. So we've got a really good league here, and there's no off night.
Of course, what is it like obviously playing those teams like Long Beach and Hawaii?
Yeah, well, it's fun to go to Hawaii. It's warm. It's a cool experience, a long flight. Each team presents its own challenges. They all have their own different styles, so being able to adjust to how they play, I think is a challenge. But both, those two schools you mentioned have great atmospheres for us to play in, and whether it's home or away, we always have good battles with them.
Of course, as an alumni and assistant coach, was it like obviously going to those schools that you played as a college student?
Yeah, it's it brings back memories. Every venue, I remember those games very vividly throughout my years. So it's fun to step back in those places and, be able to reminisce a little bit on, hey, I remember, this game here, or that shot in that corner, and at this time, and beating this team. So that's been kind of fun these past couple of years to be able to do that. And, those are memories that I definitely cherish.
What advice would you give those high school athletes looking to play college basketball?
That's a great question, Brandon. And there's a lot of things I would say, but I think there's some certain values. I think work ethic and competitiveness are towards the top. We talk about character, what you're made of. I think that's really important. But I think work ethic and competitiveness and toughness and resiliency are some values that are at the top right now. And where the game's at, the game rewards those things. And so I think something that I've seen is a lot of kids get caught up in the social media component. They get caught up in all the things that don't matter, and it distracts them from their game. And so, if you can play today, I say this all the time, if you can play and you're a good player, we'll find you. Yeah. And with all the technology out there, it's hard for guys to kind of fall underneath the cracks like it was years ago. But there's so many scouting services and things of that nature where names get out. So if you're able to perform, but I think those four things, and lastly, I'd say coachability. and we talk about it all the time. As coaches, we're here to help you. And if we want kids that want to be coached. And so if you don't want to be coached, it's obviously not the place for you here. But we're all on the same team, once you do get here, and we're all, striving towards one goal. And so I think that's also really important, is understanding who you are and being comfortable in yourself and your own identity, and having that humility component. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but humility too. Tony Bennett, I think, really like his quote is, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less. And so we want guys that are team players too. So I think all those things are things that I think if I'm a high school kid, I'm paying attention to those things.
What advice would you give those college basketball players looking to play college basketball and then go on to the NBA?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I didn't play, obviously, professionally after college. I was ready to hang it up, but I have been, Pittsburgh was fortunate enough to be able to be around some guys that made it to the league. I knowing, going back to even high school, but knowing who you are, what you do well, and really embracing that role. What people don't understand is they watch the NBA. It's like all those guys, 98% of those guys are role players. And so it's the most competitive league in the world. And so being confident in who you are and doing what you do and not trying to play outside of yourself, I think is really important. But you can't underestimate, hard work is hard work. It's not very complicated. And so guys that, there's a lot of guys that say they want it, and they have the capability, but they just aren't willing to be disciplined and consistent enough in their work ethic to get it done. And so there's no substitute for hard work in terms of taking care of your body, weightlifting, skill work, competing, film session, all that stuff. It just adds up over the years. And so that's what it takes. That's what the game requires to get there. And, the league, I think with the G League and overseas, I think you have a lot more guys that have an opportunity, to get a shot at it. And so if you're, being ready, you have a good chance that you put yourself in a position, guy gets hurt, guy goes down with COVID. We're seeing it right now. You're able to step in and maybe fill a 10-day contract. And all of a sudden now, you're in another contract. So hopefully I answered your question on that one.
What advice would you give those college basketball players that after their college basketball career want to get into college coaching at their alma mater?
Good question. That actually starts now when you're a player. I think that's something that I'm very fortunate is that I had relationships with not only the coaching staff, but people around the program, the administration, and, went out of my way to introduce myself to people. And so they knew me as I played and I knew them. And so then, when I wanted to get back in and come back, they knew me, and I think a lot of kids, they don't make that extra effort while they're playing to go out of their way and use that platform to build those relationships. And so then when they do want to come back, they don't have any contacts. Right. And so I would highly encourage that when you are a player to go out of your way and use the platform that you have to meet as many people as possible and to do right by people, be respectful, be a joy to be around. So then, when the time comes and an opportunity is available, they go, hey, I remember that guy. I remember that gal. That's someone that we want here in this program and this administration back at this school.
What advice would you give those college coaches that are looking to not coach, obviously, at their alma mater and just coach in college basketball in general?
I would say the same thing. I think it's a networking game right now. Social media is huge, but it's all about who and then that kind of gets you in the door. And then once you're able to get in, I think your work ethic and what type of person you are will bring you to the top. But building as many relationships as possible is such a wild industry. in that sense. And so it's hard for family life as well. You're going to have to move multiple times, most likely. So being able to understand that there's going to be a lot of travel involved in relocation, but building authentic relationships is by far the number one thing.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Cal Poly men's basketball program at?
That's a really good question. I'm on Twitter a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you, Brandon. I'm not a big social media guy. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at it, and I've got a growing family here. But I think my Twitter is at Coach D Hanson, and I think I don't really have an Instagram. So, and then Cal Poly men's basketball. I don't know our Twitter handle or Instagram, but pretty accessible, easy to find. Cal Poly men's basketball. We're on there.
Thank you again, Coach Dave Hanson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Cal Poly men's basketball program.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on, Brandon. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Dave Hanson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Cal Poly.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.